Okay, so now I'm gonna open up the journal. Okay, this is my very first time.
Okay.
I heard you rumblings of you writing this like,
Yes, you sure did.
earlier this year, right?
Lots of
Lots of
rumblings.
rumblings, and I am, I love oracle cards. I love journaling. So together, this is the baby of both. So here we go for our ASMR
Yep.
friends who love to hear the crinkles. I'm opening up the package right now. And whoa, look at this thing. OMG. First of all,
Isn't it beautiful?
oh, it smells amazing. I just want to say that. A fresh paper journal.
I love the smell too. I can't believe that you and I have never
Oh
talked
my
about
gosh.
that. Like,
Like,
it's as soon as September comes, I
oh,
go into Staples to smell
yes.
it
And
sometimes.
the paper, like even the wax of the crayons,
Yeah.
the pens. Okay, it's all great. So
Yeah,
this
me too.
journal is absolutely beautiful, designed by
Hay House.
okay, not Brooke.
No, I think Brooke and Hay House got together to do this together, but I have to tell you, it's a real labor of love. This was
Yeah.
my most favorite project besides actually, channeling oracle cards because I
Mhm.
receive the
Yes.
content for each oracle card deck that I do, but this was a real labor of love for me because it was the first time I was able to put the 2 together,
Yeah.
for people to really understand that working with oracle cards on their own, solo, could be such a deep and meaningful and rich experience without them using the cards to kind of like fortune tell, if you will, like what's going to happen.
Predictive.
It's not about
Yes.
that. It's being able to see yourself, to know yourself, to really find parts of you that you might have lost along the way of your journey. And the cards can help you. It's just so incredible when you start to realize that your pen, and the deck
Mhm.
can give
Together.
you,
Mhm.
yes, such an access to spirit too. Like it really is a spiritual awakening. This
Mm.
whole thing here
Okay,
is designed for that.
this is like I don't even know where to start except that this is amazing. It's called The Oracle Card Journal, a daily practice for igniting your insight, intuition, and magic. What you just said sounds like all of the above. So let's
Right.
open it up. This is the first time I'm
Okay.
ever seeing it. This is beautiful. Whew, this is so
It's
nice.
gorgeous.
It
I'm
is
really
so
happy.
nice. So now, okay, so what's amazing about this book is that it looks like you have a card a day where you can write the info on one side and draw what the card means to you. But then you have what is being revealed today for my highest good, which
Yeah.
is amazing. So could you maybe talk to us a little bit about like, first of all, can you use any deck with this? Do you have a
Yes, you absolutely can. You can use anybody's deck, the best decks that work with this process are decks that are true divination systems, and I
Mhm.
don't know what those are necessarily. I have suggestions of other people's decks besides my own in the back of the book. Resources, recommended decks, etc. These are all decks that I've actually held in my hand.
Mhm.
But I have to say that you would feel that connection. And then the gist of this is to do this for 40 days solid.
Okay. Mhm.
That because that's when you start to see the real evidence that you are not only connected to you, like yourself, right? Yourself and your journey, but you are plugged in to this higher self that reveals itself to you on the pages without you knowing it's coming. Like,
Mhm.
that's kind of the best way I could describe this, that
Right.
there's a higher self that all of us have that we don't always have access to because we get so caught in
Mhm.
human, issues, like all
Mhm.
the things that are going on day to day,
Right.
which we don't realize our soul, our higher self, that connection to spirit that is immortal, that knows why we're here, that knows our deepest longing and yearning
Mhm.
that we don't spend enough time with, that comes through every time. And it's perfect for people who love to journal and now it's added something else, but it's also perfect for people who have a hard time journaling because it gives you a subject.
Yes, and you have all these beautiful prompts. So just to pick up on what you just said, so it's like this is a 40-day invitation, initiation
Yep,
to getting more insight into your relationship with spirit and into your with
yep,
your higher self. Now, do you
yep.
recommend that a person uses the same deck for all 40 days to really strengthen that, or what's your
You know what's interesting? I that's something that never even occurred to me because I do use multiple decks.
Mhm. Yeah, me too.
So if somebody has multiple
Yeah.
decks, you know, and they're already an aficionado, if
Yes.
you will, they love oracle cards or
Yeah.
whatever, I say you can swap out your decks, why not?
Mhm.
According to how you feel that day.
Mhm.
But if you're relatively new and you haven't really developed a relationship to a particular deck. Now, this
Right.
is oracle cards. This
Yes.
isn't tarot, right? This is definitely specifically for oracle cards.
Right.
And you know, you're just new to one particular system, which is like the deck because they're each deck is
Mhm.
its own little universe. It's different
Yes.
than tarot, which is, you know, a system that's always going to be reliable and always going to be there. It's
Mhm.
a fixed system, and this is more fluid. So you want to work with the same deck.
Right. Okay.
So that's if you're new,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And so I personally, me personally, I would mix it up.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you love like you said, if you're called to a different deck every day, go for it.
If there's no real hard or fast rules, it's like, what do I feel drawn to today? Like sometimes I'll take Rebecca's cards,
Yep.
Rebecca Campbell.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll pull from you know, I don't know. What can I tell you? I mean, I have 14 decks, so I will switch out my own decks.
Yeah, I was just
But
gonna
also
say.
it's I mean,
Mhm.
I'm obviously most comfortable with my decks
Mhm.
because, I know my decks will be reliable in
Yeah.
terms of the fact that they were created,
Mhm.
um, they were inspired by ancient divination practices, so I already know that the lexicon is going
Okay.
to work or the
Yeah.
vocabulary will work
Absolutely.
and reflect back to me what is true.
Mhm.
So that's why I feel my card decks are reliable, but I there are lots of people who make great card decks. So, you know, you have to know which one you're drawn to or ones, like again,
Mhm.
multiple ones, and pick those. You know, there's you don't have to just use mine.
Yeah, and if you even don't have a deck, I just wanna give a little plug to your digital cards because you have a few different digital decks online at ColetteBaron-Reid.com.
That you can do for free,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you can go to my website, colettebaronreid.com, and go and check them out for free. And then you can also buy a deck. And if you want a digital deck, you can also go to Beauty Everywhere, which is an app online, and they have quite a few of my decks that you
Oh,
can
great.
purchase, you know, for use on your phone, or you have the hard copy decks, which is really what I suggest.
Oh, it's amazing.
I always say the digital deck is your secondary deck for your purse.
Yes.
You know, you buy that. I always have 2 versions of my decks or the decks that I like, and I have, like, a hard copy at home, and I'm not gonna lug them all around in my purse. And then I have my phone, which is the Beauty Everywhere app, now that Hay House no longer, does apps,
Okay.
so all my decks are pretty much on the Beauty Everywhere app.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm so excited to dig in.
you're so welcome.
Woo! Okay.
And we just changed our clothes.
In
Okay.
in the Wooniverse, everything is possible. All
That's
right?
right, anything is possible for
That's
sure.
right.
Woo!
Okay, I have another question about this journal because
Great.
okay, so
This journal. I love my
I love
journal.
when you get sciencey, you know I love when you get sciencey.
Yes,
So,
yes,
you mention oracular consciousness in the journal, and
I did.
can you please share with us oracular consciousness, the definition, and how oracle cards work with
Oh, wow,
that
okay.
consciousness?
So, let's just riff on that because it is
Yeah.
one of my favorite subjects. So, oracular consciousness indicates that we have inherently within us
Mhm.
the capacity to receive an oracle or wise guidance
Mm,
from the world around us, from a card deck, or from
mhm.
whatever system of divination that we have in front of us to understand it and to immediately apply it through the mechanism of synchronicity.
Okay.
So, oracular consciousness reminds us that we are spiritual beings having the human experience,
Mhm.
and that we are intuitive beings. So, intuitive intelligence and oracular consciousness are kind of cousins. So,
Okay.
it's that when you think about that, the kind of consciousness that we're talking about
Mhm.
tunes into the peripheral world and the hidden world, the world that is not measurable by the five senses, that
Mhm.
you can't necessarily see with your naked eye, that is that is all around us and is always giving us information. So it's this
Mhm.
sense that we have, this really sensitive radar, if you will, that every
Okay,
one of
yeah.
us is equipped with.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
oracular consciousness is like psychic radar,
Mm,
right? That we just have not been taught how to turn it on. Many of us have, obviously. There's like that's why it's so popular now because people are starting to recognize that every single human being on the planet hello, has this, but it's a specific type of consciousness that can really help us because oracular consciousness also is connected to the desire for the universe to always be in harmony.
Mm.
Right? So,
Yeah.
we know that if you look at the metronome experiment, for example, and you see them, when you see those metronomes and they go out of sync, there's a video on the internet. It's
Yes.
very famous, right? And you make one go this way, and the rest of them are going this way, and all of a sudden they start to get coherent with each other in sync, right? There's a sync that happens. So the universe is always alive. It in itself is conscious, and it is always seeking harmony. So when it's out
Mm.
of harmony, when it's disharmonious, when it's,
Mhm.
all over the place, it's is the reason why chaos happens is because the things that don't work,
Mhm.
that need to go, get replaced by
Mm.
something else, and there's that disharmony in the center of it, or they're trying to get rid of the disharmony to bring things back into harmony, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
the consciousness that I'm talking about always tunes into that. The layman's term is the highest good of all,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So what is
Mhm.
the highest good of all, which isn't necessarily the highest good of the ego want, right?
Right.
It's the need of us being a part of a system, a grand system of millions of people that are here on behalf of the conscious universe because we're made by it.
Right.
And so we're used by it. If we allow ourselves to be
Mhm.
used in such a way for the
Right.
highest good,
Mhm.
miracles can and do happen.
And
So
mhm.
that's how oracle cards work.
Okay, I was just gonna say, so oracle cards are also part of that symphony of tools like us and cards together.
Yeah. So the cards are a tool that serves to give structure to the language and vocabulary
Mm.
of oracular consciousness, of the potentials. And so my card decks and many others, I mean, there's a lot of them. We're introducing people on the Inside the Wooniverse, which is super exciting because there's a lot of people now that are delving into this, that are going back in time and looking at some of our ancestral divination tools, et cetera. Like for me, I went back to like way back when, what does this mean? How did they do that? And then, well, what could it mean now? So what does every divination tool have in common, or intuitive tool have in common, is they work off a system and they work off a vocabulary. I always like to think of oracle cards as a dialect of the tarot. Like, right? So the
Mhm.
tarot is
Absolutely.
a fixed system of 78 cards. They're always going to have the same symbols, etc. It's reliable. It's why that you have these big tarot communities.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas oracles are like different dialects,
Right.
different versions of the more fixed systems.
Interpretations, yeah, I
Exactly.
love that. Oh my god, that's so beautiful. So
They're
accurate.
innovative, right? So for me, it's
Yeah,
right, it's true. It's like they're innovated.
absolutely.
And
Mhm.
so I create oracle cards. I
Mhm.
love the tarot, no question. I mean, I've used it and taught it for years, but I got very interested in oracles and creating them because of the fluidity of them. And you could actually create a different type of vocabulary that
Mhm.
potentially could still speak to the archetypal universal
Mhm.
experience of all human beings because
Right.
we're just human,
Yep.
but also to reflect what could happen or we could experience as we evolve in the modern world as modern people.
And the nuances of all those things, because it's a thing plus all the variations of that thing, right? It's like
Right, it's
it's
nuanced.
absolutely, that's amazing, and with the journal, it's like you're able to make all these connections, and with the act of writing, really be able to kind of, absorb. Is that also the idea of, like, when you're writing it
Yeah.
down that can makes further connections?
Yeah, it what's really cool, and again, using the terminology oracular consciousness, that
Mhm.
you can lose yourself in writing, right? So that's
Mhm.
the thing. That's why I really want people to use this oracle card journal
Mhm.
and use anybody's deck. If
Right.
you find a brand new deck creator that's never
Right.
done it before, but you think
Sure.
their deck is so fantastic, go for it. If you find a teacher that you think is really cool and you love what they stand for and you
Mhm.
like their deck, go for that. Like, or go for mine because I can tell you about mine. But
Mhm.
the point is, this was created so that anybody's oracle deck could work with
Mm.
it,
Mhm.
because the point of it is for you to allow the card, whatever card that you pick,
Mhm.
to awaken the oracular consciousness within you. And
Okay.
then you move yourself out of the way as you just let your pen go. And
Okay.
it's
Mhm.
so cool because all of a sudden you get out of your mental construct of analysis of this is me writing this down about
Mhm.
my life, and into all of a sudden it's like, oh wow,
Mhm.
this is, you end up almost channeling. And
Mhm.
I could say actually that is the correct word for channeling. Not, it's not that you're channeling some entity like my friend, he has the Z's. He got a great book out.
Lee.
Um,
Lee
Lee
Harris?
Harris, exactly,
Mhm.
who I adore. It's
Mhm.
not channeling energies or entities.
Mm.
It's really channeling your higher self. That is the seat of oracular consciousness. Is the higher self that does not define itself by your mortality,
Mm.
and everybody has it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a way for you to bypass your conditioning, and I will use that term. That's a very popular term these days. That we're not spiritually bypassing anything. What you're doing is bypassing your conditioning.
Absolutely,
That
yeah.
actually prevent you from tuning into
Mhm.
that extraordinary consciousness that you have access to. You don't have
Right.
to. You just have to turn it on.
Mm.
This is a way for you to turn it on and exercise it. And the cards are the door openers. They're like
Mm.
the keys. Open a
Mhm.
door, the subject comes up, and then
Right.
all of a sudden
You
you might have
enter.
you enter
Yeah.
a different dimension. Really,
Mhm.
you really
Mhm.
do. You enter a
Mhm.
different dimension of consciousness, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden information comes to you, things that you don't even know you know. This is what I know happens to people when they
Mhm.
use this.
Absolutely, and connections
Things
that
you
you didn't even consider all of a sudden are like, "How could I have never considered this exact
Yes.
connection or this pattern or this," what fill in the blank, right?
Well, this is a way for people to also midwife their own epiphanies.
Mm.
Right? It's a give birth to
Yes.
your own epiphanies.
Yes.
I always say too that in Oracle school, in the school that I have, which is all about personal transformation.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
use Oracle cards as the main tool to navigate that.
Yep.
Use any deck because this is gonna work with any deck. And the ones that it works best with are the ones that are created to be a divination system.
Right.
So that's the other thing. It's like, because why? Because that means that person's intention
Mm.
was you to look at this as a system of conversation between
Mhm.
you and the divine, as
Mhm.
opposed to a thought for the day.
Yes, and I
It's
and
different.
that's right,
Yeah.
and you even list, like you said, you have an index in the back where you've given some recommendations, and you have some of our Inside the Wooniverse friends like Chris Ann and Crystal Banner listed as well, and
Yeah.
Kyle Gray. So, one more question for you. In your journal is the container is a 40-day practice.
Right.
Right? So, do you have any guidance for someone? Like, is there any preparation? Like, I know people, like you said, they will or won't, or they don't have to. But if what would you say to someone who really wants to like squeak the most out of this experience and really gain the most? How could they
Don't
prepare?
overanalyze it.
Okay.
Just go with it and
Yep.
see where it leads you. It's like, be curious. I think the best advice I could give anybody, and this is kind of what I think is our superpower anyway, like oracular consciousness is open to through curiosity
Hmm.
and to recognizing that your imagination is in service to your soul. Your intuition is in service to your soul, and therefore it is in service to all of humanity. Now that's kind of big statement that I just said,
Love it.
but just be curious and see what comes
Mhm.
up. And the inscription at the top of the temple at Delphi says, "Know thyself." Right? That
Mm.
was, the most famous place, a sacred site in Greece, in ancient
Yeah.
Greece. Where we get a lot of our oracles from. And that oracle at Delphi, that was an institution in Greece, and people would come from, all kinds of different places, not even Greece. They would come to visit the oracle at Delphi. And it didn't say, come and get your future told. It said,
Right.
know thyself. And that means that within that we are powerful co-creative beings, and all of us, regardless of our conditioning, have the capacity within us to give birth to miracles. I really believe that. And we can do what is best for everybody,
Mhm.
where no matter where we sit, even though may have contributed to pain, suffering, who the hell knows, right? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like we all
Mhm.
have a part to play in the big giant play of life.
Mhm.
But what this enables us to do is get back to the core of who we really are. And that's what all oracles are for. Wise guidance that are reflected both by you, your higher self, but also in communication with the conscious universe that has something to say.
Mhm.
If we're willing to listen, our conditioning is what has prevented us from really genuinely hearing it.
Mhm.
We typically listen through a lens or a filter that was provided to us by the people who came before, by our society, by the constructs that we don't even agree with. If we were to really sit down and go, "Okay, this is what I've been taught," and like, "Oh," because that's happening right now. We're questioning how we've been conditioned.
It's so interesting as you're talking, the analogy that comes to mind is like we were all once upon a time only able to listen to radio stations. And so we
Right.
had to hear what their playlists were and people,
Right.
not us, decided what we listened to and what was good and the top 10 and this and that. Then all of a
Yeah.
sudden with all the streaming opportunities and of course independent records, but also streaming opportunities, we can now make our own playlists. And so it's like
That's
cultivating a
right.
playlist, cultivating what do I really love that, is beyond the top 10 or whatever, but what can we and to the point
I
that you
love
made, right?
this.
That the oracle cards are like a playlist, right? This is like you getting to know, right, thyself. And
Know
when you
thyself.
know
Yeah.
yourself, you know other people because things are reflected back in lessons. And for the highest good of all is always like it is if you make decisions and intentions out of the highest good of all, it is the ultimate set it and forget it because it means everyone's taken care of, everybody's considered, and it may not slash likely not be exactly what you want, but it will be
No,
what
sometimes it's
everybody
not at
needs.
all.
Exactly. It'll be
That's
what
right.
everybody needs. And how great is that? That everyone gets something. And that really is very abundant. I love how you always say that oracle cards are the new self-care.
Yes.
What does that mean to you, and how do you feel this journal is in companion to that concept of self-care?
I love that you asked me that question, and, eventually it won't be the new self-care, it'll just be part of it,
Yeah.
but I think that working with oracle cards as part of your self-care program enables you to have a greater understanding of yourself and what you're dealing with, but also to love yourself more. I think
Mm,
the big and to not see yourself ever as broken.
mhm,
That's the other thing, I know that there's this it's really buzzy right now to talk about trauma and to talk about, healing and wellness and all these things. But I like to come to the yes, all those things are true. But I also know that every one of us, we have wholeness already inherent in us. It's like
mhm,
I believe that we were born blessed,
mhm,
that we were, the original blessing, the teachings of Matthew Fox, right? All of
mhm,
these kind of, teachers that say, don't look for what is broken. Look to choose the healed part,
mhm,
and as opposed to staring constantly at what's going wrong.
mm,
And working with oracle cards, I think, gives you a quick and very intimate relationship between you and your higher power.
mhm,
And that's also, I think, that if you can have that intimate relationship with your higher power, and if oracle cards are the way in which you can navigate that and can actually facilitate that,
mm,
you're already on that wellness, that self-care, because the self that gets lost is not the ego self, it's the soul,
mm,
that we were
mhm,
trying to retrieve a part of ourselves that's just got ignored.
mhm,
And the soul self knows that we live with the earth.
mhm,
We are part of it, not on top of it.
mhm,
Like there is a wisdom, and like oracular consciousness is a wisdom
mhm,
that all of us have. And when we tap into that wisdom, we stop doing the things that cause us harm and cause other people harm. And it's a big statement that I'm making right now. Sounds, but these are just some of the thoughts that I have if we could make this a habit.
mhm, absolutely.